as someone who works closely with our LGBTQ and allied students, and as someone who identifies as part of our community, I have my own emotions about the content of the cartoon. I don't personally think it's funny, because I know how real violence is for our community. I particularly don't think that murder is funny, because I know how real it is, because I know that even today people are murdered for who they are and who they love. So I wanted to acknowledge that this comic really triggers the fear that is very real, and it contributes to an environment on campus where we then can feel less safe. And that makes me sad, because my job here and my work here is to make this a campus environment that is welcoming to and safe for people of all sexual orientations and gender identities.
Only because I don't think the cartoonist is here today, and I also wanted to explain my own reasoning behind it. I have learned that it came across as really homophobic, and I see that now myself. It was something that I didn't see one night at midnight, and I was tired, and I was distracted, and none of these are an excuse for anything. But when I read it, I looked at it from the cartoonist perspective, and I don't think he wanted to say, this should happen, and this is funny, and we should all laugh at it. I think he wanted to say, this does happen, and it's very serious, and people should notice it. But because of the way the cartoon was drawn, those 4 panels of a really terrible, not funny joke, it came across the complete opposite of his message. And the worst part of this is that the message was really incomplete. What he should have said was that this does happen, it should be taken seriously, and we can't ignore it.
This is not about spreading violence any further, and while this petition, I firmly believe, has provided the foundation for this educational discussion, we should not be making threats to people. It breaks my heart that my intention to open up this dialogue has meant that the varying viewpoints coming from different individuals has led them to threaten people on all sides of this issue. And I hope that we leave this in a sense of solidarity.
When I was working on the story about the first reported case of AIDS in that county, in rural Oklahoma where I'm from, and it just so happened I got a bad case of the flu. And at that small university and in that newsroom, I endured weeks of harassment. Questioning my sexuality, everybody saying I had AIDS. Whether I did or not was none of their business. It reflected long-standing prejudices that continue to this day. You're the age of my children, and this crap hasn't stopped. So I want you to know that I come from that perspective, that even though I'm in journalism, I've been a journalist, I have some biases, and one of them is that I've identified as an ally of LGBTQ. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned about our LGBTQ students, faculty, and staff who have to go through hearing this stuff, reading this stuff. I'm also concerned about my journalism students who are enduring a lot. Christina, Michael, I can speak directly to you. I hear through the grapevine, I don't know if it's all true, that both of you are going through kind of a difficult time right now. Is that a fair representation? This is tough. And if out there, I hope we have a civil conversation, and then again, I'm going to suggest some things here in a minute. But if you're sitting out there tonight, if you're going to see this on Facebook, or you're going to read about this in the Wildcat, if you're one of the people who's making anonymous comments, threatening our students, if you're somebody out there who bullies LGBTQ people here on this campus or elsewhere, if you're somebody who's making these phone calls and not being courageous enough to leave your name and making threats about if this doesn't happen, we're going to do this, if you're one of those folks who are not being civil and constructive, I have a request for you. Don't bully my students. If you got to bully and threaten somebody, bully and threaten me. I can handle it. And they can handle it too, except they're my students. This is my community. We need to stop this. We need to have systemic changes at the Wildcat so that this doesn't happen anymore. Okay? As a school of journalism professor, I know you're overworked and underpaid. And it's in that kind of context I think this mistake happened. Michael, whether you intended to call for the fire or not, I don't think you can legally do that. Like, this is the student editor of the student paper. Like, I would encourage you, apply to be an editor. Take over the paper. It's the student paper. And then keep talking about these things. Because the more we talk about it, the more we can build a bridge and get over it. Because this stuff has to stop. And I think I have a personal and professional background and experience to plead with you that it all stops and that we're better for it. Fair enough?
As someone who's a gay man who came out to his dad, and came out to my dad over the telephone because I was afraid of how he would react if we were face to face, the cartoon notates something personally that I didn't agree with. Personally, I don't think it was the right thing to do, but as an agent of the government, technically